I know Baltimore's feeling it right now. I know you are, but I think I'm here to give you some good news. Your window is not even close to being closed, okay? You have Lamar Jackson on your team, all right? Take a breath, breathe, you're fine. Now, with that being said, a couple of moves you got to make. And it starts with this. Lamar Jackson, extend him again. Yeah, I know. What? We just extend? No, do it again. Do it again. Extend him because that actually increases the amount of cap space that you have. And after the season Lamar Jackson just had, I think it's pretty obvious you need to extend him. I know in the playoffs he has this kind of a weird rep, but if anything, that second half proved he can show up. And had it not been for a couple of mistakes for Mark Andrews, we could be talking about the Ravens being in the Super Bowl or getting past Patrick Mahomes. You never know. Now, with that being said, it's rough making these kinds of predictions. Is an extension going to be easy? I think so, because I think that the Ravens have done a good job, finally done a good job, surrounding Lamar Jackson with some help. Now, what's the help? Well, that brings me to my next point, Derrick Henry. I think you need to extend Derrick Henry as well. Now, typically, running backs over 30, lifespan isn't that much longer, but Derrick Henry's a different breed, man. He's a different kind of cat. And I think Derrick Henry, as long as he's in this kind of shape, and as long as he has Lamar Jackson on his side, it doesn't matter what happens. I think he's still going to be at the top of his game. Now, I don't know if he's going to have a similar season to the one he just had. I mean, he was just fantastic this past year. But I think he can still be very, very productive in this offense. Next up, we're going to get to the defensive backs because this past year, the defensive backs started off weird and then actually started to turn it around and become really, really good. And it was a weird year for the Ravens defense, but I think the secondary still has some things to be concerned about. Point being, I think they need another corner. Brandon Stevens was not cutting it, was a very big weak point. I think you can make this cornerback room and this secondary so much more dangerous by doing something as simple as restructuring Marlon Humphrey and signing a guy like Byron Murphy Jr. The Ravens struggled forcing turnovers. Why not bring in a cornerback who had 6 interceptions this year and led the league in interceptions? A guy who took away the ball frequently. I think that this move by the Ravens puts them over the top even more. Their defense this year was not that good. It wasn't as good as years prior. But hell, the offense this year was out of this world. And I think doing something as simple as adding a corner with the restructures that I just offered, adding a corner like Byron Murphy Jr., and your secondary is all of a sudden getting more takeaways, shutting more receivers down, and your team is all of a sudden that much better. Now, you're probably wondering, hey, Sam, I mean, what about the front seven? What about it? I mean, they were the best run defense, one of the best run defenses in the league. I will say this, Kyle Van Noy, I don't know if he has another 13 sack season in him. I do not know. But I do know Odape Owe has another 10 sack season in him. So the best thing to do about that situation is pretty simple. Kyle Van Noy, maybe he has another good year in him. But it doesn't hurt to have a contingency plan. That contingency plan being Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart, in my opinion, is a Raven. I think he will be a Raven. He's going to be drafted by the Ravens this year. I think it's a perfect fit out of Texas A&M. I think having a pass rusher develop behind Kyle Van Noy and having him get some reps this year, somebody as explosive as him, I think it'll help the Ravens tremendously and help them for the future. And having a guy like Shamar Stewart on a rookie deal, and in case you don't know, I'm very high on Shamar Stewart. If they end up, the reason Shamar Stewart is my guy is because I don't think James Pierce is going to be available, and Abdul Carter is definitely not going to be available. And I'm not that high on Mykel Williams. I think Shamar Stewart is my third favorite pass rusher in this draft, and the Ravens are in a good position to get him. So with that being said, I think Shamar Stewart is a guy or a pass rusher in general to really build behind Kyle Van Noy and keep that pressure rate going. The Ravens were second in the league in sacks this year. I think that continues to go if they decide to make this decision. Now, will the Ravens, it's a weird situation with the Ravens because I just named a couple of moves and it really should be like this, right? But let's talk about something else. Right. And this is supposed to be an off-season video for the Ravens, but I want to shift gears to this. How much longer are we going to give John Harbaugh a shot if things aren't going to work? I know what you're thinking. Sam, how did you turn this video from a Ravens off-season video to a John Harbaugh should he be fired video? I know what you're thinking. Sam, you suck. I don't. Hear me out. It feels like year after year after year, the Ravens keep on coming short. And I don't know how much longer we're going to give John Harbaugh until eventually he gets the axe, right? I mean, look, I get it. He's facing off against the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens of the world. But man, John Harbaugh has been a coach for a very, very long time. And seemingly things happen under John Harbaugh, like game plans happen under John Harbaugh that shouldn't be happening. We all remember what happened in the 2024 playoffs. We saw the game plan that the Ravens came out in. How do you let that happen? It's almost impossible for you to let that happen. I can name all these changes that I just made. I can do all that. But the bottom line is this. Are they going to deliver when it's time to deliver? Are they going to really come through when it's time to come through? Because I can make all these changes. Literally 2 years ago, we saw one of the greatest regular seasons of all time from the Ravens, and they got bounced in the AFC Championship game by the Chiefs. Granted, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but that Ravens team was stacked. That Ravens team was great. That Ravens team should have been in the Super Bowl, and they weren't. Very odd, very odd. But regardless of that, in my opinion, it's really make or break this year for the Ravens. I really do think John Harbaugh should be looked at and questioned because they could make these moves. They could make these restructures. They could do all these signings. At the end of the day, regardless if they do or don't do it, they have Lamar Jackson. They're going to be contenders. But how much of a contender are they going to be with John Harbaugh at the helm? Just a question for you Ravens fans. Sorry to question your coach. Just saying, I could make an off-season video, but there's really not much fixing the Ravens need to do. At the end of the day, sometimes it's all about the coaching.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.